What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Voice, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Facts Project. Today, two very special guests, Jordan Alsaqa and Randy Stone from Altruist Comics. We're here to talk about Bullet. All right. Thank you for being here, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So right now, and no, we're doing this actually on the actual launch day of Bullet. So I appreciate both of you being here and taking your time from actually like launching the comic and now that it's actually in fruition and now getting some money funded to you so that this book can come in to everybody's houses. Thank you for being here. So if one of you could, if you could introduce yourselves and basically let us know exactly what it is that basically makes Bullet so unique to the audience. I'll go with Jordan first.
Guess I'll jump in.
Oh, okay. Well, Randy, go ahead.
I just filling up silence. I can't stand it, so I just have to talk. No, Bullet's just a great throwback to classic superhero type storytelling. We always had a kind of a modern approach to these classic tales that I grew up on, Jordan as well. Really bringing something that's just a fun adventure, and it's colorful. It's happy. It's not the grim and gritty stuff that we've seen for decades now. We can really just have fun with it. It's enjoyable for people our age or my own kids. It's great.
Definitely. Jordan?
Yeah, and to me, yeah, like Randy said, he was kind enough to invite me in. He'd started developing the character many years ago. And then when it was time when he wanted to finally fund it, he brought me in to help co-write the one shot, and then kept me on to do the ongoing series. And it's just been a lot of fun. It has a modern feel. We're not writing with thought balloons and overly descriptive dialogue, but we hope that it captures that Silver Age sense of fun and whimsy and one-shot adventures while still having an ongoing developing plot to follow.
Definitely. Randy, who is Dale Desousa?
I started off in the 60s as just a college student that out of nowhere developed these speed powers. We kind of left a little bit unknown as to why he's even fast. It came out of nowhere, and he's a great guy, and he did the right thing by using his powers to help people.
Okay. Now, Jordan, why would you say in this day and age would it be good to develop a character as a speedster for once? You've seen characters like Flash and Quicksilver that have basically been pushed into the mainstream, and nobody has never touched the element of a speedster since. Why a speedster now?
I think it's for me, there's a fun, fancy free. It's that sense of action. You can do a lot of things with the speedster that other heroes can't. They're not as limited in terms of their power set. You can do a lot of cool creative things, and that's really what it comes down to as a writer. Speedsters are tricky, right? Because a lot of times, if you watch things like the Flash TV show or other things that have had speed characters, it's always the question of, they're so fast. How is it that they don't just win? They just don't stop the villain. So I find it really fun to come up with what are the challenges they're going to face that will require a bit more thought, that aren't instant win buttons. We have a little bit of that in this issue where it's like, okay, why doesn't she catch the villain? Well, because we find a way to make sure that it's not just, he got away, even though she should theoretically be able to zip around the city in no time flat. So it's just a fun creative challenge more than anything, just like finding ways to keep innovating in the space of a speedster.
Okay. So Randy, when we're to retrack and go back to issue 1, because right now this Kickstarter is in issue 2 and 3. The last time that we saw this comic, it was introduced in the eyes of Dale Desousa, and he was visited by an old friend of his, Michael, who had returned from the future. And at this point in time, Dale is a very, very old man who used to be Bullet, or better yet, in his better sense of mind, he was Bullet.
Yeah, so it's interesting we're playing with so many different time periods here because the original one shot was set in the 60s, and then issue 1 of the continuing series was 2006. And we found Michael from our near future going back to 2006, sending Dale even further back and giving him kind of a reboot. He de-aged in that issue, and he had a little adventure back in the 60s again as he explored things with the original Michael from back in the day, young Michael, I guess.
Mm. So would you say that for the most part, because when Michael does go to see him at his elder age and he tells him that pretty much he's on the clock, and as much as he tries to get him back to the past, like was it more so for the audience to know that pretty much this one issue with him was going to be just very short because of the time being that he was going to die within a day?
It's interesting. I guess we set that up just as the end of his life, where that was the latest possible chance Michael could visit him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not so much about a time limit on what kind of stories we can tell before he dies tomorrow, because as he goes back, he gets de-aged, and I think that's no longer a factor. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll see that as we come towards the present day as well.
Got you. Now, Jordan, how would you describe the development of a character like Michael? Because we do see him in issue 2, and of course he was one of the main components in issue 1. Would he be more so as an antagonist as we see him, because basically he ripped Dale from his peaceful loving journey into the afterlife that he was about to go to in a day? But better yet than not, Michael was like, look, you're basically going to push me into the point where I'm going to be one of the greatest scientists that ever lived. So I kind of need your help. But in the meantime, I know you're going to die.
It's interesting. So I think one of the things we did when we wrote the one shot, and I think when we wrote these 4 issues, is maybe we're never going to do anything else with it. So let's pack as much in story wise as we can. So the one shot had, I think, 5 different villains at different points in his career that we visited with. And then with these issues, it was like, all right, let's get going. We have time travel, ice villains, teen romance, time travel hijinks. We have all these things that are like, if we don't do anything else, let's just have fun with it. And
Mm-hmm.
with Michael, it was very much a case of we needed a character to like kickstart the action. And we see 3 Michaels because we have the one in the 60s that he knew was in the one shot. We have
Yep.
this elder Michael who shows up to throw him back in time. And then with this issue, with these issues, we'll get a chance to meet a Michael in the middle, and whether he's a villain or not, that's to be seen. I think the first issue gives a little bit of a menacing sense to him, but hopefully not outright villainous out of the gate. It's we're not even sure, when we're creating it, we're like, where are things going to go? We're kind of leaving it open, hopefully in interpretation, and we'll see where things go as we get further in with these issues.
Mm.
Yeah, we definitely put a seed in the first one shot where he was a little bit self-absorbed and not the greatest guy. But as we traveled back in issue 1 of Bullet Adventures, you can see there's a bit of potential for change in him. And I think that's where it plays out. How will meeting Dale from the future coming back and changing his path really affect Michael as he grows into an older gentleman again? Will he take the same path that that future Michael who was self-absorbed to the extreme, or will he turn a leaf and become the nicer guy that we see the potential for?
Yeah, it seems like basically throughout like issue 1 of the comic, and of course the surprising reveal in issue 2, like we're looking at Michael as having the more complex personality traits, the more evolution that we see within these 2 issues. I mean, as much as we like to think that issue 1 is about Dale, and more so it is because of the family component, the evolution of Michael and what we see within the 3 point of views that you have of him throughout the story. Would you say that basically he takes up a good portion of the story? Because is there a chance that there's an art of tutelage that might happen later on with of course our newest hero in issue 2, that would be Elaine Choi?
Yeah, well, Michael's been a factor throughout her life for sure,
Mhm.
and definitely a part of the larger family in that way. Dale not being around for that because he got sucked into the past, Michael definitely filled a role, and we'll see how that plays out with his influence on Lainey.
Got you.
Yeah, and when you're looking at time travel, I think the impulse is the big, what if I killed Hitler type of the big changes, right? But we hope that that first issue sets things up we can do in the future where, yeah, there maybe are big consequences to him fighting the leopard gecko because that was a big thing he didn't do originally. But we also have that small character moment with Michael where he says something really nice and heartfelt that the him of that day and age in the 60s, a young man in like the 90s probably wouldn't have the emotional maturity to say, will that have an effect? Will that change it? Is it a small thing that will cause a lot of ripples? So we hope that the time travel can make for big bombastic changes and exciting adventures, but I think at the heart we want to make sure the characters shine through, because otherwise you can get superhero action anywhere. We hope that the characters are what draw people in to want to keep reading our superhero book.
Right, because from how I looked at it, Michael is very cognizant of the fact that he understands how much time he has to play with. And he understands, of course, if he takes up too much time, that there is ripples. You kind of concluding that when he's basically reintroducing himself to Dale when he comes from the future. Jordan, if you would say.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of we have an idea of what the timeline looked like, and we have an idea of where it might branch off now that Michael interfered and sent Dale back to the past. Where he ends up after that first issue, obviously, we still haven't fully revealed. But yeah, our goal is that we'll get a chance to examine the life that was versus the life that now is.
Mm-hmm. So, Randy, would you say that Michael would more likely feel a sense of regret now that Dale is not around?
It's interesting because in the present day, Michael wouldn't be aware that his future self was the one who even sent Dale back. So
Okay.
he's there as he was probably close to Joanna. They were colleagues and stayed in touch over the years. And so seeing that Dale was now absent fills a void that was in that family's life. Maybe that suggests that the changes that Dale caused, being back there and setting him on a nicer path, really did have a lasting effect. And the Michael of 2006 ended up being a fairly nice guy.
True. Now that we've been introduced now with skipping a generation to Dale's granddaughter, Elaine Choi, what would you say is her personality traits given in this driven through the continuancy of this series? Jordan?
I would say with Elaine, it's very much I want to almost say, I don't want to say 90s, because obviously 90s comics have a bad rap. But that was my touch point, was books like Spider-Girl by Tom DeFalco, Miss Marvel by G. Willow Wilson. It's the teen superhero, but a very lighthearted, fun, the balancing act, right? The thing people love about Peter Parker is trying to be a high school student while also trying to be a superhero. The balance between all your relationships, having a secret identity, but also being
kid,
that next
really.
generation. Yeah, being a kid, but also being that next generation, having these past heroes that you look up to, which for her would be this grandfather she never had a chance to know, and trying to make it work, trying to find a balance. And the same thing a lot of teen superheroes deal with, terrified you're going to screw it up even when you are clearly doing good. And that's just being a teenager, right? Even if you are doing things right, you don't necessarily feel like you're anything that's happening in your life.
That's true. Now, would you say that her mother is showcasing a little bit of resentment towards, either is it because of Elaine's powers, or is it just because of Elaine, or is it because of her father? Randy?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a conflict between any parent and child. So, like, she's a teenager. But yeah, definitely Marie resents the fact that the superhero life took her father's youth from her. I guess she also wouldn't really be aware of why he disappeared suddenly, but you could logically conclude must be because of that weird super stuff you're going through. But he was an old man all throughout her life. Growing up, couldn't really do anything like father-daughter. It was an elderly man that raised her. So she definitely resents the super speed aspect of their family's life. And for Elaine to drop into that a little bit and follow in her grandfather's footsteps wouldn't go over well for sure.
Right. Now, would that more so supersede exactly who she's trying to be? Is she trying to prove herself to her mother, or even better yet, her grandmother?
Maybe not. I mean, I think that that mantle that she kind of resists following in the footsteps, like she does it because it's the right thing to do, but
Mhm.
she actively resists being called Bullet or, I'm not my grandfather. I can't possibly fill his shoes. Um, yeah, so I don't know. Jordan, I'll let you talk to that a little bit
Yeah.
too.
Well, I think it's a mix of things that we hope to explore, and I think if people give it a chance and see issue 3, we dig in a little more on that relationship between mother daughter, and I think it's something that'll keep coming up if we move forward. But yeah, it's wanting to prove herself a little bit, but also wanting to do the right thing. But it's a different world, and I think as more of these issues come, Dale saw a few weird things in his time as sort of like the impetus for all of these strange supervillains. And now that we're um, 40, 50 years later, or 60, it's a long time skip,
Yeah.
but 50 to 60 years later, things have expanded. There are a lot more weird creatures out there, villains. And so this issue obviously has her reckoning with the ghost of the past in terms of a new Diamond Dust, which is one of the villains the original Bullet fought. But we're hoping, we want to expand and see more villains, new things that are unique to her, and things that will complicate the relationship she has both with her family history, with her friends, and with the idea of being a superhero.
Now, Jordan, the first conflict that we saw between this Diamond Dust and and Laney, like it almost seemed like it was playful rather than someone that was trying to like kill her or anything like that. Like they basically like talked to each other at the end and was like, you know what? He was like, I got the one up on you. And she was like, no, 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 no. It's a tie.
Yeah, we want to keep that playful spirit. We hope to have more character drama, and again, I think issue 3 has a little bit more of that, but the villains are hopefully going to come across as fun loving and a little different. Like we wanted Diamond Dust to kind of be, whereas she's maybe unsure of the legacy, this new Diamond Dust is all about it. He's really into it. He's
Right.
trying to recreate the past. He's trying to improve on this legacy. Um, so he's obviously dangerous. He's not above necessarily hurting people to get what he wants, but he's also very playful about it because there's a certain level of like, I'm getting to do what very few other people do. That's be a supervillain and have these weird powers. And um, it's he doesn't take it as seriously as he should, which makes him dangerous in a way different than if he was outright malicious.
Okay. So, Randy, if you could say like, was that the component that you wanted to keep it? Like you would talk about how this is like more of a Silver Age comic where it was very fun loving from issue to issue. So where you would get these tales of them battling their villains, and yet it would be more of a dynamic to where it would be like, I defeated you, see you tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, there's a kind of that sitcom effect where things do reset to a certain point, but obviously the characters build as we go on. Um, we talk about the Silver Age a lot too, but Invincible was also a great influence on this. I always kind of approached this main series as if Invincible wasn't all blood and guts, because it ended up becoming quite a bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you'd have completely. It's fun, it's bright colors, teen angle as well. And I think that's partly, we're not seeing that villain murdering somebody or like, punching a fist through a chest and blood everywhere. So we can kind of balance that, the similarities with what I wanted to take from the Invincible series, the early issues kind of thing, and run with that. That way we don't have the gory, gritty stuff, but it's just all the fun stuff is left.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, yeah, I think that's not to say we don't have like maybe more serious topics we might hit at some point, or darker material, but never. I think, yeah, we're not going to be the fists through the stomach type of book, but if we have death, we want it to be a death that matters or has an impact. It's not just background chaos for the sake of it. But yeah, out the gate, we want to establish that for the most part, we're a sunny, fun-loving book. But then if we get to those more dramatic moments, they hopefully hit harder because it's not the norm and it's something that is going to throw the characters off the axis.
Mm-hmm. Now, issue 3, which is also being offered in this Kickstarter, is somewhat of a mystery. We know that there's going to be a new villain that's going to be introduced by the name of Cupid, but yet we're not too sure of the story going forth, although we do know that we have the ability to read issue 2 all the way through, and we know that there's a cliffhanger involved, and then we get basically introduced to this new villain, and then we don't necessarily see issue 3 as much. Is there any clues or context that you could give into issue 3 that you may want to skirt around so that people will know what they're in for once they get issue 3? Randy?
I think mainly, I mean, our pillars of this book are the family dynamic and the superhero action, and issue 3 really pushes both. So we'll see that. Of course, the villain is Cupid, and I mean, you can see from the designs that are posted on the Kickstarter page, it's just a wicked cool looking villain. The all white tack gear and the dripping bloody heart there. But basically, just some background on him. He's got this dart gun that will shoot like a chemical cocktail of love chemicals that he makes people fall in love, and he can go about his bank robberies or whatever else as he's doing. Yeah, it's more fun. It's more superhero stuff. We develop the characters further. It's great. I can't wait. Part of the reason why I'm doing both issues right now is because I'm just eager to get them into the world. I want people to read 3. I don't want to breeze past 2, so here's both.
Got you. Got you. Now, Jordan, how did you manage to make a character so intimidating and yet have a weapon like a chemical dissolvent that he basically makes people fall in love so he could go on about his dastardly deeds?
Again, it's one of those things where we wanted it to be playful, but also still have a lot of danger. And again, we don't show it in the but what I will say is if you're trying to get excited for issue 3, and this is credit to our artist Nico and to Randy for conceptualizing. It has, I think, the single most exciting page in the whole run of issues we've done so far, with a real an exciting full page splash, really showing off things that only speedsters can do. And it comes
And also only
directly,
comics can do in a way, right?
yeah, and only comics, and it's thanks to Cupid. Again, it's thanks exactly to the sort of stuff Cupid as a villain is capable of doing. So it all comes together to where issue 3 is a bit more of a dramatic issue because we have a lot of character drama up front, but we hope that anytime we do action, we make it count. And again, I think Nico and the whole team killed it on making the big action scene of issue 3 count.
Nice. Now, Randy, if you could give us the whole creative team aside from yourselves that basically made these books possible.
Yeah, so we've had a bit of a change in art teams through the first few issues. The one shot was done by Kath Lobo. She wasn't able to continue when we decided to go ahead with an ongoing series. So I discovered Laura Kane on Twitter, and she did the first book and continued on with the covers for this first run. She unfortunately had to drop out after the first issue too, but it was timely because starting with issue 2, it's the present day and thematic switch. So Nico Carrizo came on board. This is his first ever published work. The cover he did for issue 1 was the only thing that he's had published to date. And he's ridiculously good. Like you've seen issue 2, like I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a major Marvel or DC title right now. Like he's just that good. Fran Citarelli, who came on board to color, perfect pairing with his work. Like it modernizes it with the two of them, but still that classic kind of fun, colorful feel. And then, of course, Lucas has been lettering the whole thing, as well as Jordan and myself being on the titles. So yeah, it's a great team. I'm really grateful. Jordan's been a pleasure to work with. The collaborative nature is just fun. Like I remember those emails back and forth. I work all kind of weird hours around day job and kids and stuff. So it's usually like, 1 a.m. I'm typing an email to him. Turns out he was up anyways. I'm sure we could have been chatting.
I keep weird hours. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like these back and forths we'd have, and he'd pitch something and I'd springboard off of that, and it becomes this like really incredible idea, and this back and forth is the most fun thing you could possibly do in comics, is the collaboration. And then rewarded by having the artwork come in and seeing what that looks like after the artists have visualized it. And it's incredible.
Nice. Now, Jordan, is it easy? Would you say, because you've now done it a few times now, is it easier to co-write an issue like you've been doing?
Yeah, I think it's been a really good process because as a collaborator, Randy is very willing to just like we come up with the idea and then he'll just let me script, and we'll do an editing pass after that and go through and come up with things that, oh, maybe we want to hint at this or change this. But it's a very easy process. It was the first co-writing I ever did. It's led to me, I'm co-writing other stuff for my other projects now on different in different ways. But as a collaborator, I mean, that's the point of comics, is collaboration. So I do it with artists, of like, get out of their way and let them do their thing as much as possible. And as a writer, I think we both have things we want to see happen, and we've never been so torn that we're like coming to blows. We've had disagreements, but we always work it out. We find a good compromise, and I think so far I've always been happy with the final product. And I think doing things I might not have done on my own has made for more exciting issues. And I'll say, looking just a little more to the future, issue 4 is a concept I probably never would have wanted to touch at all, but Randy was really excited about it. And then in actually developing the villain and developing the story, it became one of the issues I'm the most proud of. So that's why comics is so exciting. It can push you.
And it's
out
really
of your
good.
comfort
I have
zone.
to jump in there because Jordan, when he first sent me his draft, and I guess maybe it was my initial seed. I don't know. I can't remember. It's like, it is pretty collaborative. But when he sent me the draft of his script, I honestly, like, I'm not even joking. I stood up from my desk and I clapped myself. Like, it was a flawless script. I didn't have any notes on that. It just, he executed it perfectly. The way the villain was handled, the character development, everything was just so good. And yeah, Jordan, you say I let you do the scripting. Like, really, you're doing all the hard work. Like, I can come up with some ideas, and yeah, I've got some things like I really want this scene or this beat. But otherwise, it's just Jordan's doing all the heavy lifting. And the book's better for it because obviously I couldn't possibly come up with all the stuff that he does. So it's great.
Nice. Now, aside from this, as an attachment onto the Kickstarter, when people are getting Bullet in their hands for the first time, I believe there's other titles that you're putting with this that are also Altruist Comics properties.
Yeah, so there's an add-on feature. You can pick up all the other books that I've done. The Sensational Swan, the mature stuff like Crime Pays and Death in Comics. So you can pick up all the other things if readers are new to my work, other things that I put out. You can catch up with those either digitally or with the extra books.
Nice. Now, as far as like the state of indie comics as it comes to be within 2023, outside of the pandemic, what would you necessarily say, like in the past few years, how has indie comics basically has it been shaped in your eyes as far as like how it's been moving as a business? Jordan, if you could.
It's always tricky. I got started really seriously with my first Kickstarter myself was in 2015, late 2015. And even just in the past 8 years, things have changed so much, just like how prevalent Kickstarter is for indie books, what convention tabling looks like as it gets more expensive and more corporate owned in general. And then the way social media is making it harder than ever to actually promote your independent stuff. It's tricky because I think fortunately certain things are working to at least balance out. Like, again, the fact that Kickstarter is so ubiquitous now, everyone, I mean, even just this week, I've seen like 5-6 creators whose work I love have a Kickstarter out. And I'm like, okay, let's look and see what's available. And it can make it difficult to stand out as a new creator, but it also makes it so that people are able to find it on their own a bit more naturally when, Twitter is going to suppress your link as much as algorithmically possible. So it's tricky, and it's tricky to know. I always question, like, I'm still pretty young in comics, but even the advice I would have given on how I got in just isn't as relevant anymore because of the way things change so quickly. But the fortunate thing is that Kickstarter's still doing well. It's such a known entity at this point that people are independently finding these things. I think we get a good bit of discovery, but we're also fortunate to have a lot of returning backers. So I think it's just a matter of, especially as cons start to become more common again and people feel more comfortable, it's getting out there, it's getting your name out there, it's doing shows like this, which again, thank you for having us. And it's the hustle, and that's always what independent comics is. It's hustling to and having the passion to understand that you're doing comics because you want to do comics and not because you want to do film, because this is a terrible way to try to do film or TV.
This is true.
Yeah, the hustle is interesting though because this wasn't an opportunity before. Really, it was just working the convention tables a few years back. But now you've got this entire platform where you can reach the world. Essentially, like my books have gone to almost every continent. Like it's just a pretty amazing thing that otherwise I would have been isolated to my local shows, you know.
No, no, I totally get that. I feel like it's grown like exponentially over the past few years. Now there's not only just the crowdfunding that you see from Kickstarter, but other crowdfunding sites have now been more prolific in entering the universe, as far as like the Zoops of the world and the crowdfunder with the DR at the end. They've now started doing comic books as well. I mean, I think people have started to see that, you know, comics within Kickstarter was like a $30 million business model for like almost the past 3 years. And then everybody just looked at it, was like, I would like to make some of that money, service fees or whatever the hell it is, and then try to jump into the mix too.
Yeah, and there's growing pains, I think, but I've seen successful campaigns again from known creators who've done crowdfunding, who've done Zoop, and yeah, they still need to grow, but I also think there's that certain level where something like Kickstarter stagnates a little bit because it is the biggest dog in the yard and it maybe doesn't want to innovate. But um, I haven't seen if I don't think they've launched yet, but I know BackerKit is doing their own thing and
Yeah.
has offered things Kickstarter wouldn't for years. So, I mean, it might change some more, but I also think Kickstarter is probably going to be it's the public conscious one. It's always going to exist to some degree. But it's exciting seeing all these opportunities and hopeful options for new communities. I mean, I think Zoop creators who find a way to build an audience there are going to connect, and you're going to get new um, creative groups that form out of that stuff. And so it's always exciting, and it's fortunately still a way for people to do stuff independently when IPs get gobbled up so fast by corporations that hopefully the little guy is able to keep making their own thing for a while.
Yeah. Randy, now would you say, because of how vast and how worldly indie comics is it difficult to be unique now in the market?
Huh, that's interesting. I don't know. I guess I've got kind of a small view on things. I know a few people in the indie crowds, but I never really looked at it like I'm doing my own thing. I don't know if it's unique or not. I know there doesn't seem to be a lot of successful superhero books on Kickstarter. You know, indie comics seems to avoid that because it's more of a big two thing, maybe. So
Yeah.
hopefully we're doing something unique with it.
I
I haven't
feel
given
that
that
you
much
are.
thought.
Yeah, no, I feel that you are. If you're basically bringing forth the return of a Silver Age type comic with a lot of personality traits from that era, and yet you're doing a speedster in the same fold, you know, it can only be seen as being very unique in this vast world of a lot of characters that are being put out there.
Yeah, I think overall we're focused on quality. I hope we're not retreading anything, but I can tell you we're doing a really good job of what we are doing, whether it's that unique or not. It's a book that stands on the shelves. If you put it next to anything Marvel DC does, like I honestly, I'm taking myself out of this when I say it. It stands up to all that stuff. Like it's just a really high quality book. I just work with really good people.
Oh no, for sure, for sure. Now, as far as the Kickstarter, you are now at day one, which means you probably more than likely either 30, I think 30 days left in this Kickstarter. For those people that want to see your prior work, whether it's issue one of Bullet or any other titles that are basically through Altruist Comics, where can they find it?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, if you want to back the current project, it's got all those available through add-on. Altruistcomics.com. Yeah, I've got a shop there, so we can always pick things up through that or local shows or whatever that I do. But these are the best because you can get a package of a whole bunch of books for a little bit of savings and yeah, save on shipping as well. I mean, you get something cool. You're the first one to read these new Bullet Adventures comics. You can say you got into the ground floor because I hope there's big things in store. It's a great set of characters. It's a high quality book that I think when people start discovering it, they're really going to go nuts over it.
Nice. Now, Jordan, what do you expect for readers to, aside from myself, what would you expect for readers to see within issues 2 and 3 that they will hope to enjoy?
I think the biggest draws are, it's weird to say about a second issue, but it is a great jumping on point in terms of the time jump forward and introducing a new character. It has, fun action, um, plot twists. I think we hit pretty fast and hard with in terms of like our cliffhanger ending. And again, just gorgeous art realized by a team that really is bringing their art. I mean, again, right down to the lettering. Like Randy said, the team really is bringing it. And we've had some growing pains, but it's fortunately worked out so that we think 2 and 3 is a great starting point for our new creative team that's fully in place. And if it's successful, we want to keep doing it and get more fun, lighthearted action into people's hands. Going off what Randy said earlier, it is hard to be unique if you're thinking about it, but I think we've never been like, oh, what's the trend we should chase? It's just been Randy very genuinely wanted to make this superhero book. I've always wanted to work on a book like that, so we've really linked up in that sense, and we feel like the work stands on its own, and will has hopefully continued to find an audience.
Excellent. First off, thank you for basically showcasing this book, and I appreciate you guys doing this with me. I look forward, of course, being someone who backed issue 1, 2, and now with 3. I hope to see more of this title going forth. You guys have done a fabulous job, so I appreciate y'all for being on with me.
Pleasure's all ours, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
We got to have more. Just to we got to get Nico to do more issues before Marvel or DC snaps them up. So hopefully,
look, the guy's incredible. So please, like, let him know, like, just from somebody seeing on the outside looking in, like, hey, man, you might want to speed up the process. All right. So, look, for Grandmaster Facts, James Grandmaster Facts voice, Randy Stone, Jordan Alsaqa, thank you guys for joining me. And for the Facts Project, we are out.